It is an honor for me to join you all here today for such an important conversation. This interactive session with you will center on Ghana's digitization agenda and how it fits well into President Akufo-Addo's vision of building a modern Ghanaian economy anchored on digital technology. It is a conversation and political resolution that we must have as a country if indeed we want to be equally competitive in the global space. Thankfully, the current political leadership led by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is showing the needed interest and commitment to create a modern Ghanaian economy that can compete favorably globally and conform to the dictates of the fourth industrial revolution. Undoubtedly, the global development paradigm is moving. Some may argue has moved from the industrial age into the technology and information age. This transition is coming with its own transition terms, such as e-commerce, e-procurement, e-marketing, e-business, and electronic money. Not to be left behind is e-governance in the public sector, which is our focus this afternoon. And with it comes all the other interventions mentioned earlier. In nearly 5 years, this government has been pursuing aggressive digitization and digitalization agenda by using ICT as a tool to achieve better governance. The overarching objective is to get government public institutions to use ICT to enhance their ways and means of linking with the general public in ways to reduce cost, improve performance, increase ease of access and speed of delivery and effectiveness. It is about how government organizes itself, its administration, rules and regulations, and frameworks to coordinate and perform public administration. For many post-colonial societies like ours that appear stuck in the old and antiquated ways of doing things, technological innovations and digitization are just what is needed to leapfrog years of public administration reforms that have almost become a never-ending business, in some cases even more bureaucratic, more red tape, more opaque, and impediments to doing business. Much of the public sector administration which this government inherited were actually set up as instruments of governance of the people by the ruling class. It is a rigid public sector, unbending, centralized, and in many ways slow in responding to public needs. And I must say, most of the public administration systems, even as at today, are pretty much the same, despite the interventions we are seeing. They all have to be fixed, and now. Following the brilliant public lecture delivered by the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, on digital economy at Ashesi University some 4 days ago, Ghanaians have had some awakening on the potentials of digitalization and digitization for economic development. Embracing digital technologies means providing strategic drivers to create open, participatory, and trustworthy public sector to improve social inclusiveness and government accountability, and to bring together government and non-government actors to develop innovative approaches to national development and long-term sustainable growth. A World Bank study has shown that every 10% increase in broadband penetration boosts GDP by an average of 1.3%, and every 10% increase in mobile teledensity results in a 0.7% increase in the gross domestic product of a nation. This means digital governance, which will need these tools to be successful, is crucial to economic transformation of developing nations like Ghana. But the question is, how is Ghana's digitization agenda improving the economy? And I hear many people asking some basic and pertinent questions about the linkage between digitization and economic development, and I will try to highlight this. Many pundits and analysts have tried to either explain or seek clarity on how Ghana's digitization agenda is linked to economic management or economic development. While the theoretical explanations for the digitization and economic growth nexus is clear and established, the consequential practicalities of the linkage appear unclear to some. I will attempt to highlight a few of these. For instance, people have asked the question about how digitization relates to exchange rate depreciation, debt levels, cost of goods and services or prices on the market. In trying to appreciate how the development of digital technologies can help reduce the cost of goods and services, we need to understand how price build-ups of goods occur through exchange rate exposures. It must be understood that one means by which the currencies of countries become exposed is rising debt levels. As our debt levels and debt services burden increase, we need more foreign currency to settle our debt obligations when they fall due, if they are externally procured. This consequentially exerts dampening effects on our local currency's performance, leading to depreciation. A country with an increasingly depreciating currency has higher import costs, which is corollary passed on to prices on the market. So indeed, if you want to see how digitization is going to help us reduce prices of goods and services on the market, i.e. inflation, that is where I'm driving you to. Countries borrow because their domestically mobilized revenues are inadequate to finance critical expenditure. This arises from a highly informal economic architecture, inefficient tax administration systems, and smaller than required tax nets. What governments have done in the past is to increase the tax burden of the few who are willing and pay taxes, thereby collapsing businesses and causing unemployment. Surprisingly, despite the widespread technical and street view that the solution to getting increased domestic revenue is broadened tax base, successive governments have done little to stem the tide. The solution offered by this government is to use digital solutions, such as the national ID card system. The beginning of this commitment is the aggressive manner in which government executed the national ID card registration. In furtherance to that, we have integrated the national ID and replaced it with the GRA tax identification number. As indicated by the Vice President, this integration automatically raises the number of Ghanaians with tax identification number from 4% to 86%. This has broadened the tax base and made it possible for many Ghanaians to be identified as potential taxpayers. We have moved a step forward following the Vice President's challenge to GRA to make the processes of filing taxes easier and simple to be done using mobile application device. This device is available on Ghana.gov mobile app, which is available on Google Play Store or App Store on Android. The Ghana.gov mobile app is also a platform that ensures that payments for government services are done electronically and funds channeled to government accounts instead of being pilfered. So clearly, we see the direct impact of the digitization agenda on the potential for Ghana to mobilize more revenues domestically without overburdening the taxpayer. We also see how this could potentially cut down on our debt levels and consequently help us to attain a relatively stable currency and reduce the rate of inflation. So what I'm saying here is that if you have a country like Ghana, where we borrow so much because we are unable to mobilize revenue domestically, our tax revenue is about 14.5% of our GDP. So once we get this tax revenue, it's unable to do so much for us. We therefore need to go and borrow money. Once you go to the international market and you borrow and get dollars, bring to Ghana. When the payments are due, you have to exchange cedis for dollars, okay? And in so doing, your currency comes down and depreciates, and the dollar appreciates. Now, once you have a depreciated currency, your imports become expensive, because anytime you want to import, you have to exchange so much cedis to get a dollar. And when the imports come, because it's expensive, the price or the cost is passed on to the average consumer. What you need to do is to make sure you increase or broaden your tax base and raise so much revenue domestically such that how much you're borrowing from the international market is reduced. And that is exactly what we're doing with the national ID card by integrating it with the tax identification number and increasing the number of people who have tax identification numbers from 4% to 86%. We broaden the tax net, you get so much revenue domestically, you borrow less, and in that case, your currency becomes stable and your imports does not become expensive. There have also been the question on how can digitization help us create jobs? There is this contention on how digitization can help create jobs or reduce the rate of unemployment. Someone even said, yeah, Pejuma, what's digitization? To wit, we need jobs, and you're talking about digitization. But I dare say that digitization is making it possible for many jobs to be created in both the public and the private sectors. The concept of digital technologies has come with what we could be seen as a virtual means of trade, put differently as e-commerce. Think of that young university student or graduate who does not have the required startup capital to rent physical space or shop to ply her trade. She is able to skip this hurdle and trade using the social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and so on. Her shop is her dormitory, hostel, car booth, or bedroom. She is able to advertise her products, get orders, and receive payments through the mobile money payment interoperability with no hassle. She has a job now and hires a delivery man to deliver the goods to the buyer, thereby creating job for the delivery man also. The volumes of trade taking place via the technologically driven medium and the number of people employed in this space could be mind-blowing. There are many people today who have turned their home kitchens into restaurants, yet no one visits them physically to eat. They advertise using digital technology, receive orders using digital technology, receive payments using digital technology, and move their incomes to bank accounts using digital technology. This is how digitization is creating jobs. Okay, so many jobs are created in the digital space that you find it difficult to even quantify. And so when people ask the question, yeah, per Juma, what's digitization? We need to appreciate and understand that so many jobs are created in the digital space in this country. Digitization and economic growth. Some also ask the question, how is digitization related to the macroeconomy? Okay, how is it related to economic growth? Some ask, why don't you talk about economic growth, like GDP, since that is what you are known for? Yes, everything we do is geared towards enhancing economic growth and increasing the growth spurt. But quite interestingly, having the desire and wish to increase growth is one thing, and putting in place the systems to serve as vehicle for that economic takeoff is also another. We keep on doing the same things in the old-fashioned way and still expect new results. No way, it won't happen. Growing up, through my youthful days to my adulthood, I've been hearing rhetoric about how we are blessed as a country with abundant natural resources such as gold, diamond, bauxite, oil, cocoa, and so on, and still we are not developed. There have been talks about how better or at par we were with countries such as South Korea, Malaysia, and so on, but today are miles away from us in terms of development. While we complain about the hopelessness of the society we have created for ourselves, we equally must be aggressive in thinking outside the box to offer the most contemporary solutions to our long-standing challenges. The complaints and rhetoric will not do the magic. How can we have increased economic activity and growth when we do not put in place systems to make trade and commerce executed efficiently and effectively with speed? Before we implemented mobile money payments interoperability, we saw how difficult and slow it was for people to pay for services and receive money, either remittances or debt payment from one another. In an economy where velocity of money is low, economic activity is slowed down, and growth is hampered. We have addressed this economic challenge with an economic solution underpinned by digital technology called the mobile money payments interoperability. It has made life easier, simpler, brought efficiency into our payment system architecture. So what we are saying here is that if you want to see how digitization is linked to economic growth and GDP growth, you need to ask yourself the basic questions. How can we spur economic growth? You spur economic growth when there is increased economic activity, people are able to pay and receive money as and when they are due. But when you have a system whereby if somebody is in Tamale and owes me, and I'm in Accra, the only means by which the person can pay is to go to the bank and deposit the money in my accounts. Well, I don't even have bank accounts. What happens? Or travel from Tamale to come to Accra to pay me. You can imagine the number of days for the person to travel and come to Accra. So until the person comes to Accra, I don't receive my money. And until I receive my money, I'm unable to invest the money for my business to grow. When it happens like that, you slow down economic activity. You solve such economic problem by bringing economic solution, and we did so with technology. We brought the mobile money payments interoperability. That makes it easier and simpler for you to transfer money from one point to the other. It doesn't matter the geographic location and the distance. So you see that money goes and comes, what we call in economics the velocity of money, the rate or the frequency at which money changes hands. When money goes and comes frequently, then you're able to use that money to spur economic activity. And once economic activity increases, productivity increases. And once productivity increases, your growth also increases, and you have higher GDP. So those who are asking what is the linkage between technology and GDP growth, this is how we are working to solve the problem of GDP growth with technology. And that is the understanding we need to get. Another way to look at this is also the use of electricity. In today's modern world, access to and use of electricity is so central to economic development. How can a society or an economy compete globally when it is designed in such a way that access to electricity is severely impaired by the lack of physical structure and technologies to make it easier to be accessed? We lived in a country where after 60 years of independence, a factory or worker had to stop working for hours because electricity units are used up and vendors have gone to sleep. How do you increase productivity and growth with this bedtime no electricity mentality. Today, through digital technology, we have made it possible for millions of Ghanaians to have access to electricity from an app on their phones without having to shut engines of machines. So another way that we're using technology to increase economic growth is in the area of electricity. We all know that the Ghanaian economy cannot move if you don't have electric power. And we had created a system that was so analog in design that if by the middle of the night or after 10 p.m. or so, your electricity units get used up, you have to sleep in darkness. If you were working, you have to stop working, because if you go out, the vendor who is selling the units to you is asleep, and you cannot have access to electricity. Once you don't have access to electricity, you become unproductive, okay? And your GDP can never grow. You solve that problem by introducing the ECG app. And by the ECG app, those whose meters are compliant to the app are able to buy electricity credit on their phones. It doesn't matter whether the lights go off at the time that they are sleeping or in the night or during rains. And by doing so, you solve an economic problem with an economic solution underpinned by digitization or digital technology, and your growth also comes. There are those who also ask the question of the relationship between digitization and cost of credit. And I know businesses in Ghana are so much concerned about how much they are borrowing, because if the cost of credit is high, it also has consequences on the prices of goods and services that we meet on the market. We have had years of life in Ghana where the identity and traceability of people have remained problematic. This has imposed huge risk on borrowers, hence the higher risk premium placed when people seek bank loans. We are addressing this problem with the National ID and Digital Property Address System. Once the integration of the National ID and the banking databases is ready, banks will have trust and confidence in borrowers' identity and traceability. This will obviously bring down the cost of credit. So oftentimes people ask, why is it that in Ghana when you borrow, the interest is so high? But we have not sat down as a country to think about how we can get the cost of credit down. If you ask the bankers, apart from the balance sheet issues that imposes some element of cost in the price build-up on the interest rates, one key thing that is affecting us in accessing cheaper credit is the risk premium that the banks place on borrowers. Because the bank is unsure of your traceability and identity, it's not so sure that the light bill or the water bill that you are bringing to him or her at the bank to indicate that this is where you live, the bank places so much risk on you. And that risk premium is what pushes them to increase the cost of borrowing. And so if you borrow and the cost should be 5%, because of the risk premium on you, they can say, let's make it 10%, because they are not sure whether you run away or you not run away, and whether or not when you run away, they can trace you and identify you. This is a huge problem, and it is a problem that has existed with us for so many years. We have not had any solutions to this problem. What this government has decided to do, based on our experiences, our knowledge, and everything, we decided that let us get a digital property addressing system in place that brings some assurance to lenders on our traceability. Let's get a national ID card in place that brings some assurance to lenders on our identity. And once we are able to integrate these technology solutions with the databases of the banks, it becomes easier, and it brings some assurance to the lenders that indeed, when this person borrows from me, I'm sure and certain of the identity, I'm sure and certain of the traceability of the person, and therefore they will bring down the cost of borrowing through the risk premium. So that is how digitization is solving economic problems for us, by making sure we get lower cost of credit. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude and take your questions by saying that we have had decades of systems that are either malfunctioned, regressive, inefficient, and not fit for modern day living. It has taken political will on the part of government to put these systems in place. The status quo benefits the few to the detriment of the many. Furthermore, there is little immediate political benefit from implementing these innovations. It takes some time for the full benefits of digitalization to become obvious to many and manifest in our lives. Politicians generally cannot afford to wait. The infrastructure we have put in place for digitalization is soft infrastructure. It is not like a road or a bridge you can point to, but it is powerful and expanded highway for development. The digitization agenda we have put in place is what is making it easy and simple to renew your national health insurance membership without having to travel to join long queues and pay bribes. It is what is making it possible for you to check whether or not the car you want to buy is insured. It is what is making it possible for you to buy for your electricity units irrespective of your location or time of the day. It is what is making it possible, and when all this is ramped up, the e-pharmacy is done, will afford you the chance to find which pharmacy has your prescribed drug and whether it is FDA approved or not with ease. It is what is making it possible for all, particularly rural settlers, to apply for government scholarship and receive same without traveling to Accra. It is what is making it possible for taxi and Okada riders to pick any customer and receive payments irrespective of the telecommunication company they have their mobile accounts with. So if you look at all that we are doing, we are making life easy and simple for people. And what we are doing is for the benefit of everybody, particularly the rural folks, the poor and the impoverished. Come to think of it, before we made scholarship application online, if you had to apply for scholarship after school and you lived in, say, Tumu, you had to travel all the way to Accra to pick scholarship application forms. A young graduate, a young senior high school graduate, what work do you have to do? You don't have any work. You don't have any money. You have to labor for months to get lorry fare to come to Accra, pick forms, and go back to your town without even the assurance that you get the scholarship. Today, we've made it easy and simpler for people, for poor people, for people who do not have connections to apply for scholarship online. They are able to write their aptitude test online. They are able to get their assessments done online. They go for interviews within their districts, and they assess or receive scholarships there and then without having to travel to Accra. This is how we're making life simple and easy for people. We're making life simple and easy for people who hitherto had to go and join long queues to renew their national health insurance membership. If you lived in a village, you had to take car and travel to the district capital to renew your national health insurance membership. You go there, you register, people extort money from you, and it takes you like 3 to 4 months before you get the renewal done. In between the time that you did the registration to the time that the renewal is done, when you are sick as a poor person, you have to pay cash. Otherwise, you could not access health facility. We have profit solution to this economic problem by using digital technology. Today, with the mobile app, we've made it easy for you to dial *929# and renew your national health insurance membership on your phone. This is how we are making life easy for people. This is how we are making sure that Ghanaians feel proud as Ghanaians and they know they are benefiting from the system and the government that they have created for themselves. I thank you very much, and God bless you.